Good morning. We're coming to the end of May, and again, I decided this year I would do a May Days project of my favorite games. Again, my criteria are games that, of course, I've played in or I have run substantial number of sessions with, and they needed to be games that I discovered in the last 6 to 8 years. Um, so this is not the first John M. Stater game I discovered. There was a period where I owned probably 6 or 7 John M. Stater games, mostly the original kind of OSR D20 stuff. Then I discovered that he had all these little games that were unique, 2D6 and unique engines. Um, and of course, he designed a game that brought me back to tabletop sports gaming, which was pen and paper football, which uh, uh, over the last, I think since 2017, I can't remember exactly when I first discovered it was available and got it on Lulu. I've played more of that game career mode than any tabletop sports game, probably until Grid Zone a few years ago. But the point is, John M. Stater, one of my favorite, I won't say publishers, I guess publishers, designers, and he has made, and we've had some of the most fun with his basic games. Um, I can't remember the 1970s detective slash cop TV show. I can't remember the name of that one, but my gosh, man, we ran a 70s-esque cocaine run from New York to Louisiana. Steve and Harold, unbelievable. They were perfect for times when it was just a couple of us. Steve and Harold. Usually we broke those games out when it was just Steve and Harold. We broke it out, of course, with Brian, Steve, and Harold when we had opportunities to try games like Black Death and etc. And they're all great, but as again as I generally do, if I'm not going to continue to run them, etc., I generally gift them, donate them, or provide them to a local charity. And so the only John M. Stater games left that I own are pen and paper football and one of my all-time favorites. And this is not just favorites of the last 6 years. This is one of my all-time favorite games, Barbarians and Basilisks. And you can see we're talking about a game that is those are sample characters. We're talking, and then we got a sample characters and we got a sample dungeon. The rules are 18 pages long, not counting of course, the initial front page. So the rules are really I would say, are 17 pages long, right? John M. Stater, copyright 2017, John M. Stater. Um, Cartography by Dyson Logos, right? This back art for me is phenomenal. I absolutely love this back art. This reminds me a lot of those large format Conan mags when I was a kid. It's just a brilliant back cover. And I love the go ahead, tread some thrones under your sandaled feet. You know you want to. So this implies film. I mean, this really does. The conceit of this is, hey, think about your favorite barbarian films you saw as a kid. Think about your favorite barbarian films, that B films. Of course, I think he's suggesting directly, Conan the Barbarian Conan, which to me is not a B film. The Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan to me is a fantastic film. But the point is, I ran it like it fully suggests. I ran it like a film, right? I would even do an opening scene that established the characters. I ran this online in my old channel for a group of about 5 people, and it was almost flawless. The rules for this are phenomenal. It's simple, but it allows big tables, and it makes sense because you're thinking of it in terms of film clips, right? We cut to a character on a horse drawing his firing, and then we cut to the target either. So I ran this purposely like things were in a film type environment. The last one I ran for Jose, Eloy, Jim, and Dell, I ran a little more traditionally, less like a movie, less like, but I did write it in acts. So one of the things when I run this, I prepare this in scenes like a film, a 4-act, 5-act film. So there'll be the introduction, there'll be the prologue, then there's the act 1, act 2, act 3, and generally the epilogue or act 4, and then the 5th act would be an epilogue. And I generally write them in the scene concepts like a film, right? You're going to have that introduction, you're going to have the all of the traditional screenplay type or story type arcs, right? They learn of the dilemma. They then have that, and then we have the denouement or the climax, etc. Right? I love this game, and you don't have to play it that way. By no means does he said, do this like a movie, but I love a couple of things about this. Hero creation is fantastic. You create an archetype. Either you're the barbarian, the thief, the warrior, the sorcerer. They all have particular effects upon their attributes. This is a 2d6 system. So you roll 2d6 sum, so from 2 to 12. So therefore, it is curved. Use a lot of d6 as well. So you're going to roll damage, things like that. This was the first game where I saw magic, I would say non-Vancian magic, right? This is the first thing I really looked at that I went, oh, wow, the magic is not D&D, right? And I really love the way he outlines the magic. Depending on, magic for the most part is going to be to affect game, especially affect maybe damage upon an enemy. Therefore, the more damage they want to do or the bigger effect they want to have, the harder the die roll will be, right? You're going to need to roll more dice to do a thing. And that's pretty cool. You can't just do it. You got to cast it. And the more you want to do, the more difficult the roll, which makes complete sense, right? You're doing something. But one of the things I really appreciate in a book this simple, 17 rules, super simple, was he puts things in miles and seconds, right? He puts things in that makes sense if we're going to do a conversational game and we're going to do, right? I was setting it up in like a setup of a movie scene, but then of course we played traditionally. It wasn't like, everything, but you try to draw visual. I would try to describe scenes as if they were from a certain angle, etc. Right? So, but my point is, for instance, we know that if you have 1 stamina, you can travel for about 3 miles before you must rest. I love that he gives that. What does that mean? Well, if a 6 stamina, I can go 18 miles in a day before I need to rest. This is pretty gigantic. Really does inform play. It informs what your character is capable of, and what the worst character in the party could be a drag on the party, right? How much weight you carry, right? And of course, this affects other things. And then intelligence is languages. And then the other thing I really love is perception, how far you can see. So with a 1 perception, you can see about a mile, right? And it's difficult to hear, etc. You can see up to 6 miles. And perception, of course, is for hearing, spot, sight, and resist things. So it affects 3 different checks, which is really cool. So if I have a 6 perception, I can see up to 6 miles on a clear day, and I can hear and spot things on a 6+ 2d6. So very good. And I can resist the number roll of 2 dice, resist magical compulsions, which would be illusions, etc. Right? So this is quite literally an effect against magic illusions, a 4+. So you can see how important perception is on a 6. Charm, of course, gives you henchmen and an ability to charm, etc. And right, and then we have the hero types, as I already talked about. They all have skills. So the barbarian has an attack bonus. He has tracking, climbing, stalk, and intimidate. Right. He has other things. Another chart for him. The sorcerer, of course, has legend, passive, active, and attack. The thief has lock, agility, has lock, trap, pocket, and sneak. And remember, it's based on your rating. So a thief has these things, but it's based on his agility. So if you have a thief with a 1 agility, which would be kind of crazy to choose a thief, he's not going to be a very good one. If you have a 6 agility, he's going to be a brilliant thief, right? So we're not leveling up in that way, right? And then of course the warrior is quite literally let's see here. The warrior has and they all have their own combat table. I forgot about this. Wow, I've got to play this more. So everybody has their own combat to hit table. So of course a sorcerer in melee won't hit as well as a warrior or a barbarian. And then the warrior has a movement table, and they all have their own movement table. So this is the other thing I really appreciate about such a simple game. A barbarian per second can move 20 feet, right? So now we can really play theater of the mind when we're thinking about a combat happening in seconds. So for instance, when I ran the game, and I wish I had not lost that YouTube channel. When I ran that big game with, I think there were 5 or 6 players, that opening scene was in media res. They were on the road protecting a princess, taking her to be married to a northern king. It was a Conan-esque setup. And the opening scene, literally, we are describing and rolling dice at 1 second intervals, right? So literally, what are you doing in 1 second? I'm drawing my bow. What are you doing to cut back to the bad guy riding up the horse and trying to leap from the horse onto the wagon, and then back to firing arrow and then arrow hit and etc. So it was really, it felt like very tight movie combat, very fast, very visceral, which to me is high adventure, right? So when somebody says to me Conan to me, high adventure shouldn't be methodical. We shouldn't be rolling dice and checking numbers and then re-rolling dice and swapping tokens. And we should be thinking on our feet, epic, fast, and violent, lethal. And it was the perfect system. And okay, I ran Blood and Bone a lot like I ran this, right? Blood and Bone to me was a D20 formula, very fast, very high adventure. Blood and Bone to me, it's kind of Scott and I've talked about this. Scott can use Savage Worlds to do these kind of things. Well, I could easily do D20 with this, as long as the rules were simple. Blood and Bone was the best example. I think Index Card RPG would be a perfect D20 version to get fast and violent and just conversational, right? This was another one, and I absolutely love this. It comes with an actual movie script, but it comes with this brilliant movie poster, B-movie poster, Death Slayer, and that is the module. It's a little quick dungeon crawl, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, and then what's in the actual rooms, and then of course our selection of heroes and enemies, so you get an idea. And you can create heroes instantly almost. You can create monsters. Monsters are in this. Most of the book are monsters, by the way. So it's character creation, a short equipment list, and how the game is played, how damage work, how you're killed, how adventurers work with traps, etc., skill checks. And then mostly it's monsters. And then it even has a dungeon crawl example set in 4 scenes. So it does in a way imply B-movie, right? Barbarian. Love this game. John M. Stater is probably, I had more and purchased more of John M. Stater's work. I really fell in love with his non-D20 OSR stuff. So that was, Sword and Sandals, I think it was called. That's a great game. The TV 1970s kind of film detective game. I can't remember the names of them, but they're all, I since gave them all to, I think I gave them all to Harold. I think Harold had them. I can't remember where they all went, but I kept only 2, Pen and Paper Football and Barbarians Basilisks. I also own this on PDF. I still own some John M. Stater stuff on PDF, so I own it. I just don't own the books. So that is May Days, folks. This will be the last May Days, obviously, this year. Barbarians and Basilisks, one of the best games. And if you want high adventure, simple, but full of, there's no rules missing. So we're not completely without things being defined. It defines enough that it informs all the other things we could decide in play if there isn't a rule for it. So when I talk about GMs, you want games that are simple, and we have enough information that GMs can extrapolate what's the best way to adjudicate what Bill has asked for. Bill wants to do a thing. Is there enough in the rules that informs us all that this is kind of what it would look like? This is a save versus something isn't in the book, plague, right? So plague isn't in the book. There's no save versus plague, but the best way to adjudicate a potential infection would be a save, right? And we can pick a poison on the chart, right? And everybody would pretty much go, yeah, that sounds fair. Save versus poison, save versus plague, right? So we can adjudicate it based on what is available to us. Because this puts things in seconds, feet, miles, how far can we travel in a day? How far can I see? How fast can I move in 1 second? How fast can I move in 10 seconds? How fast can the barbarian move in 3 hours? We can do remarkable things. And because it implies we have archetypes, the barbarian in combat always goes first, right? Certain monsters would equal the barbarian in going. The warrior generally goes second, right? The sorcerer, the thief. So initiative set by who's the barbarian, right? Who's Conan in this group? If you want, and it's a perfect game for one-on-one play, 1 GM, 1 player, because when you create your hero, your barbarian, you get a number of henchmen, and they should name their henchmen, right? So, and every PC, by the way, gets henchmen. So if I have a group of 4, and we did this when I had the big game years ago on my channel with Josh and Mark, and I can't remember who all played in that, but they all had their own henchmen. So they had their character on a horse, and they kind of had their henchmen. And That first in media res launch, many of their henchmen were killed along with the ambushing of the wagon bad guys. So we had this epic, but it went like film cuts, man. It was such a fast, vicious, visceral combat. And all that's left is our PCs survive, and a couple of henchmen are left, and none of the bad guys are left. And the princesses, they find out what's in the way. They actually don't know what they're delivering. They ultimately discover that in the wagon is the daughter of a merchant, but they didn't know that. They just knew they were delivering a thing they thought was a treasure wagon. Turns out it was not treasure. It was an actual daughter of a merchant who was being married off to an evil, typical B movie, evil sorcerer in a temple in the north kind of thing. And God, dog, was it one of the funnest games I've played. And then again, I've had more than one session with Steve, just me and Steve, because it was the perfect game to snatch when there was just two of us available. Because you can make a character, and because they have their own henchmen, they're never alone in the world, right? He makes his Conan, and then we end up based on his charisma. I can't remember where his henchmen are determined. Henchmen. So if he has, say, a charisma of 4, he would get 2 henchmen with him, right? And they're with him like allies in his little war party, and it's and you name them, and they don't have any special abilities particularly. They're henchmen, but it's a great game. And it can get hairy, right? If you had 5 players in a big party and they all had a pretty good charisma, you would end up with a platoon, which actually works even for a movie, right? Because they're not going to play a role in role playing. They're going to be tools the players can use, or order my 2 henchmen to follow that wagon and get back to me, right? And these ideas are brilliant for movies, right? The hero, and he waves off his guys to go do the thing, right? And we never talk to him. We see him give orders, etc. But perfect game. John M. Stater, prolific, right? Lots of great games, many OSRs, D20, basic, expert, some advanced D&D type stuff. And then, of course, lots of these games that were unique, 2D6 games with skills, stuff I had never seen before. So it isn't an OGL. He wasn't borrowing systems from another classic old game. They were his original designs, and some were really well thought out and fully completed pieces of work. Some of them felt like they might have been missing a few pieces here and there. This is not one of them. I think this outlines everything beautifully in 18 pages, or 23, counting the whole book. But anyway, thank you everybody out there for watching. Everybody have a great upcoming weekend. And next week, I believe we are going Wednesday Night Joth. I don't know, but everybody have a good day. And now that I have dug this out of storage, you can see it's pristine. I have not used this. I have another one that's somewhere around here that's pretty ragged around the edges. There you have it. That's Barbarians and Basilisks by John M. Stater. And I got this from Hulu. I think you get the PDF from Hulu or from Drive-Thru RPG. The book itself, I think you have to get from Lulu, if I remember right. So, thanks.